This is a very complicated situation. There's so many issues surrounding situations like this. So we can't talk about blame, but we can certainly talk about the discussions that have come about off the back of this. And Jo, one of those discussions is how people in the public eye are cared for, a duty of care for people who are celebrities.
Well, it seems to me fairly minimal. I mean, you know, you get it now for contestants, as we know, that duty of care is improving, but for actually people in the public eye, presenters and so on, I wonder where they get their duty of care from. Should it be their management company? Should it be their employers? You know, you lose your right to privacy when you're in the public eye, and you're therefore constantly exposed. And, you know, this has brought tragically to light that we need to care for those people who are presenting our programmes, not just people who are entering them, if you like.
Seyi, this is something in terms of social media abuse, trolling. This is something you campaign heavily against to try to deal with. How do you deal with trolling? How do you deal with it, with abuse you face on social media?
Well, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that over the weekend there was an outpouring of support on the online community saying something must be done. And we've been saying there's three things to this: government, tech companies and us as society. We all kind of knew that Caroline was getting a hard time in the press, a hard time online, but did anyone intervene and speak up or report the abuse that she was receiving or amplify kind of the good work that she has been doing or anything like that? And I think there's a lesson there for us around how we behave online. It's not just not doing the trolling, but what do you do to stand up against the trolling too? And then government have just last week announced the online harms white paper on how they're progressing with that. That's fantastic. But if you look at the definitions of harms that they've outlined, it has no mention of women. It goes from children to terrorism, but women are missing, and we know that women are 27 times more likely to be harassed online than men. And for black women, 84% more likely. I mean, I was on your show just in December discussing this. When is the government going to make sure that it's looking at all forms of protection for women online so that we make sure we learn from what's happened with Caroline?
And Joshua, there are lots of questions over the CPS. Caroline's management team are actually saying that the CPS did not have to progress and take these alleged assault charges against her to court. What is the situation there? How do the CPS make that decision?
First of all, they look at whether there's enough evidence for there to be a realistic prospect of a conviction. And then they look at whether a prosecution is in the public interest. And look at it the other way around. If it was a man accused of assaulting a woman, and assaulting her in the home, and the woman said, well, I don't want to go ahead, you might think that woman was under pressure from the man, coerced, trying to succumb to more pressure of the sort that had led to the alleged assault in the first place. And would you really say the prosecution should be dropped because the woman was too frightened to go ahead? So it's not just what the alleged victim wants, it's what society wants, and society wants to stamp out domestic violence.
Well, if anybody who's watching has been affected by what has happened to Caroline Flack, there are details on the screen right now. If you want to talk to anybody, as I said, if you are affected, please do contact the number on the screen now. If you just want to talk, you can also do that as well. And a short time ago, I spoke to Kerry Katona, who'd been in touch with Caroline Flack over the abuse that she was receiving on social media. I began by asking her what it was like hearing the news of her death.
Shocking. It was actually my mum who sent me a text saying, is Caroline Flack really dead? And I didn't believe it. I actually thought it's going to be one of those where people spread rumours and it's not true. And when I saw it, I just started shaking and just burst into tears. Just shocking, the fact that we was literally exchanging messages not long ago. And I said, just surround yourself with good people who've got your back. This is just a bump in the road, Caroline. You're going to get through this. Show them how strong you are. And obviously it wasn't enough. This is not just one person's fault. This is something that's happened and it's escalated. And the press have run away with it. Then it's on social media. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's entitled to opinion. But it's how we project that opinion and how we put it across. Especially somebody we don't even know, or we don't even know the facts of what's going on in their life, or we're just reading something that's in the newspaper from a certain source. A source says this is. We don't know what's the truth. And then everyone jumps on the bandwagon. And when you're that person who everyone's talking about, it's so difficult to take all that on your shoulders and not actually believe what they're talking about.
What needs to be done to change that?
I definitely think laws need to come together regards to social media. Also, the press now, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and stand here and say the press is this, the press is that. I also work with the press. I need the press for what I do as a living. Caroline needed the press for what she did for a living. We're both entertainers. We love entertaining people. That's what our job is, but then we're scrutinised for it. They get a kick out of a terrible headline. And it's not fair. I do think we can use each other, but to an extent that it's controlled. Before you go printing things, I think people selling stories, that needs to be stopped. I think closed sources, that needs to be stopped. Print facts, that's all these newspapers should be doing. They should be printing facts, not surmising and not going off hearsay, because it's ruining people's lives.
Well, Kerry, thank you so much for talking to 5 News. You have said this is triggering. Do make sure, you look like you're in a fantastic place right now, but do make sure you speak to somebody, get the support you need if indeed you are affected by what's happened. Thank you so much for talking to 5 News.
Thank you.
And I'll say the same to you, actually. If you indeed are impacted or affected by what is going on, the Samaritans numbers on our screens right now, do get in touch. Jo, it was very interesting. You could still see Kerry getting very, very emotional in terms of how she's been treated by every area, really, the press, social media. And you yourself got an idea what it's like to get online abuse as well. And you're somebody who advises people, helps people get through this, and you found it very difficult yourself.
I found it really difficult. As I said to you the other night when we were talking on the radio, I literally just wanted to hide under the duvet. I felt physically sick. I felt strangled by it. I mean, really, to have experienced it, just a fraction of what goes on, has given me, the only positive side, it's given me such incredible insight into what people do go through, and very often aren't willing to say. I was willing to sort of say it, but not perhaps the first week. I wasn't willing to engage. I felt it's a physical and emotional sickness, but as human beings, we're compelled to look at what is being said about us, and then we're being asked to ignore it. That isn't possible for most people.
Seyi, you were nodding your head when Kerry Katona was talking about some kind of legal framework protecting people. And we were seeing that with Caroline's law being pushed for that, for protecting celebrities. Is that something you think should be introduced?
Yeah, we don't have enough legislation at the moment that protects people online. We have pieces of legislation and law, Communications Act here and there, but we don't have a holistic framework which everyone knows what rights and wrongs are. And there are going to be grey areas, don't get me wrong, around what is free speech, but there's some things that are clearly hate speech, some things that are clearly intentional around causing harm. And actually, I think it's about pushing a duty of care on tech companies and actually us as digital citizens to say we've got full responsibility for what we post online, for what we reshare online as well. I feel bad for Caroline and her family, and we have to remember that this is also happening to women all around the world right now. Women are disproportionately impacted and affected by online abuse, and when are we going to have a policy and a framework that says that that's not okay anymore?
Very interestingly, just last week, the government said that Ofcom's now going to regulate social media. Of course, we'll find out over the next few months how that would work. But Joshua, in terms of Caroline's law, if I could just explain what they're calling for, they're saying that there should be new and stricter laws around safeguarding celebrities and people in the public eye. This will affect newspapers, magazines and all media outlets, really. How could something like that work?
How could it work indeed? How do you define celebrities and people in the public eye? What do you have to do to be a celebrity? Why not, as you were saying, protect everybody? Why have a law just for celebrities? To some extent, in many cases, celebrities are better able to look after themselves. They can pay for lawyers, they can pay for advisors, they can pay for supporters. It's ordinary people who find themselves caught up in some tragedy or something like that, who find themselves the target of media attention. They're the people who really need support, if anybody does. Celebrities, on the whole, should be able to look after themselves. And you know, you talk about saying, well, let's have only facts published in the newspapers. That's fine, but who's to say what is a fact? Celebrities have agents. Agents give stories to the papers. Those papers report those stories without being able to say, this person told me this, and I have not been able to establish it as fact. It's stories that the celebrities often want to see published in the newspapers, but they don't want to be sourced. So it's very difficult simply to say facts are fine, but rumours are not.
OK, I'm Joshua Rozenberg, Seyi Akiwowo and Jo Hemmings. Really good talking to you both. All of you, rather. Thank you.
Thank you.